happy Tuesday. Welcome to Meeting of the Minds. We're having Meeting of the Minds Mondays on a Tuesday. I'm your host, Intellect, and we're going to jump right in for the sake of time. So yesterday we were scheduled to do our Meeting of the Minds, but we are here today. Our topic is belief system. How's your spiritual foundation? So something that we have yet to talk about is this subject, and we wanted to talk about it because it is very important. Foundations are very important, right? So before we jump in, some announcements really quickly. Showcase Your Talent show is tomorrow. Today is the last day to register as a contestant to compete for a grand prize, feature just to showcase what you got, or a sponsor if you have a product, service, or business that you want to discuss during the show. The options are still available, and today is the last day to register. Stay tuned, because after this live, there will be a post that tells you all today is the last day to register. So make sure you get it in before midnight tonight, or else it will go towards our following month. We have, of course, Meeting of the Minds Mondays, where we talk about different things from self to business to art and everywhere in between. If you have a topic that you would like us to discuss, definitely DM or email us so that we can add it in the queue, because we are here to serve you. All right, we have Q&A Wednesdays once a month, where we just pose a question to gauge you and get to know you a little better. Apart from you being artists, because we are more than what we do, right? It's part of us, but it's not all of us. So if you have any questions that you would like to ask us, there is a time for that. You can ask it during the live, either in the question box or the comment box. You can also email us or DM us ahead of time so that we can guaranteed answer you before we start anything else. If you want to pose the question of the month, there is an option for that as well. You can contact us for those details as well. We also have Freestyle Friday. In 3 segments, we have open mic. Every time we have an event, we have Battle Art Second Fridays, right? Congratulations to our recent winners. The theme for next month is Note to Self, Interpretation of Self-Love. So if you're interested for a reward, a cash reward, you want to participate, if you're an artist, as long as you are participating based on the theme, you are in the running. Once everyone goes, the viewers choose who the winner is, and the winner decides the following month's theme. So that's how that goes, and that's second Fridays. Third Fridays, we have Art of War, Art Awareness Fundraiser, where we raise awareness for the beauty, necessity, and uniqueness of art, as well as funds so that we can come to a city, state, or country near you. And you don't have to wait till third Fridays to donate. You can donate at intellects.com. You can click our link in the bio and go and click the donation option. If you just want to pour into us and you can't make our meetings, that is totally fine. It does not have to be on the days that we host meetings, right? And then on fourth Fridays, we have our feature segments where we spotlight and showcase an entrepreneur doing their thing in the community and making a name for themselves and doing a great work while doing it, right? So if you are interested in being on any of these events and hosting any of these events or featuring, definitely connect with us so that we can add you in the queue. We also have Intellect's Place for Entrepreneurs podcast, and season 3, we dropped 3 episodes in a week, y'all. Definitely go check that out on Anchor, Spotify. We also on YouTube. Check our podcast out on there as well. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure you do that. All right, we have promo options, merch. We have so many different options going on, right? Make sure you subscribe to our email list. It's free, so that you can stay up to date on everything that we have going on here at Intellects, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. All right, so without further ado, thank you for tuning in. Our topic for today is belief system. How is your spiritual foundation? And you can comment your responses in the chat, or if you just want to listen along, that is fine as well. So we are going to jump right in for the sake of time, and this will be a part 2, right? Because we don't have that much time, and we have a lot of things that we're going to go over today. We're going to go over a lot in a little bit of time, but we're going to delve a little bit deeper into it next month for our meeting of the mind. So this will be part 1, and stay tuned for part 2 next time. All right. So we're going to jump right in. So what does it mean to have a belief system? What does it mean to have a spiritual foundation? Well, having a belief is something that can be true or false, something that you've been told over and over again, something that has been ingrained in you. You may not realize what's going on. You may not realize how it's affecting you or what have you, but what you were taught, whether it's true or not, and what you believe, what you have convinced yourself to believe is true, is what you believe, right? And that is grounds for your foundation. And your foundation is what holds you up or what brings you down. If you don't have a strong foundation, you will crumble. But when you do, you stand strong and it's sturdy, right? So it's important for us to understand what we actually believe, where our foundation lies, and how strong or how weak it is, so that we can work on that. All right, so we're going to get into a couple clips. I'm not going to play them all for the sake of time, and they will be the same clips that we will be delving into next time for part 2, but I do want to play a little bit from each. So here is our first clip from Dr. Miles Monroe.
Property, why give a slave authority? Why give a slave money? Why give a slave a future? Philosophy. And so is the story of colonization. It's easy to sell a slave. After all, they're not chosen by the gods. Now, let me say something very quickly before I wrap this up. Every philosophy comes from an ideology. Ideology means ideas. Every ideology needs a theology to justify it. So every time there's a philosophy and an ideology, there must be a theology to give it credibility. And this is why religion was used to even justify the ideology of superiority. Do you know what they taught us when I was a child? They said to me, "You fell out of the sky." We had no idea where we came from. We were taken away from our homeland. We had no history. And we'd ask the white teacher, "Where did we come from?" And they would say, "You fell out of the sky. You have no heritage. You are one of the fallen angels." Theology. They say, look, the Bible says that the beasts of the field shall carry water for you. You are the beast that God talked about. You will carry water for me. They would teach this in Sunday school. Philosophy. And here we are now, still on the Democrat. 200 years of conviction that you are not equal to others. 200 years of miseducation that you cannot think sophisticatedly. 200 years of believing that others with certain traits are much more superior and more intelligent and better than you. Philosophy. And so they say, you must be quiet. You cannot speak much. You're not supposed to express your ideas. You keep your thoughts to yourself. Just make tea. You're not supposed to speak up when you see something going wrong. How dare you? You're not smart enough to see what is wrong. Leadership problems. Here's the biggest one. Since you were chosen by the gods to be followers, why waste my time on you, training you to be leaders? So if you study all the colonies in history, including mine, where I'm from, the colonizers never trained leaders. And what's amazing is when they finally abandon and leave you, they expect you to fail. And that's why they leave. They always say, well, of course, there are more of you than us, so we're going to get out of here in case you kill us. But we know you can't lead anyhow, so your country will fail. So they expect you to fail. Well, I don't understand that, because if you didn't train me, how can I succeed? And when you do fail, then they blame you and say, see, I told you, you ain't intelligent enough to succeed. They forget that my failure is proof of their failure. And that's why this leadership training series is important. I have come to correct 200 years of history. You are a leader. You can run this country. You can lead the world. Take a deep breath. Tell your neighbor, I was born to lead. Clap. I want to show you this before we go, because it's so important. All the world leaders, if you study them, they're all battling with these issues. And by the way, in one of my books, I did research on what happens to a people who have been oppressed for over 100 years. And I discovered that they all have the same problems. I used a case study of the children of Israel in Egypt. They were oppressed for 430 years. And when they finally came out of Egypt, they couldn't get Egypt out of them. And as soon as they got independence, or should I say deliverance from Egypt, under Moses was their leader, and even Moses had psychological problems. Remember, he was born in Egypt. But you'll remember that when they came out of Egypt, they didn't go into freedom. They was just delivered. Don't confuse deliverance with freedom. Papua New Guinea is not free yet. You are simply delivered. You are in the desert. And why does God take you to the desert? Because he doesn't want you to go into the promised land with Egypt in your mind. So he keeps you in the desert to try and change your mentality to think like a free person. Don't ever confuse independence with freedom. Independence is an opportunity to become free. It is not freedom. They were delivered from Egypt. They were independent from Egypt, but they still wasn't in the promised land. You are not yet in the New Guinea that God promised you yet. Because that Papua New Guinea requires a new kind of mentality. One day, my wife and I went to Egypt to visit. And we were in Israel for 10 days. And we caught our flight from Israel to Egypt. I will never forget my experience. We took off from Tel Aviv. And before I could fix my seatbelt, the announcement came over the PA system. Please prepare for landing. I became confused. We just took off and we were landing. Now I thought that Egypt was far away from Israel. And so I became confused. I said to the flight attendant, I said, excuse me, ma'am, is there a problem? She said, why? I said, why are we landing? She said, we are about to enter Cairo, Egypt. I said, but we just took off from Israel. She said, yes, sir. I said, but we didn't fly. She said, I know. I said, we're landing. She said, yes, we're landing. I said, wait a minute. It's only been 20 minutes. She says, yes. I said, wait a minute, lady. I was in Israel. That's Canaan, the promised land. And in 20 minutes, I'm in Egypt. She said, yes. I became confused. I started calculating. Let's see. 40 years. Why would it take 40 years to make a 20-minute journey? Interesting question. When we arrived in Egypt, we went to the hotel, put our bags down. Our guide came later that day to take us to see the pyramids and go to El-Aqsa and all the places of Egypt to see all the pharaohs, you know, the history and everything. And we went to the pyramids and everything, and beautiful. And we felt like we entered the Old Testament. Because that's where the Old Testament, really, most of it took place. And I said to my guide, when we were driving, I said, sir, how far away are we from Israel? He said, depends on how you get there. I said, okay, if I drove in a car, how long would it take? He said, it'll take about 7 hours. I said, what if I walk from Egypt to Israel? He said, it'll take 40 days. I said, what about the aircraft? He said, 20 minutes. I began to calculate. I said, wait a minute. If I drove in a car on a bus, it's 7 hours. If I walked, it's 40 days. If I flew, it's 20 minutes. I went back to my hotel room, confused. I picked up my Bible because I had to go and find out what happened. And the Bible says, and they left Egypt, headed toward the promised land. But God did not take them directly there. I'm quoting the Bible. Because they were afraid in their minds.
All right, y'all. It's getting good, I know. But we're going to pause it there and do a continuation next time. Okay? Just a few things really quickly before we move on to the next video is a few things that he said. For one, and if you have a spiritual foundation, the question that I have for you is, why do you have that spiritual foundation? Was it something that was given to you, that was passed down to you? Was it something you searched out and researched? Know your history, for one. Because if you're following something blindly and you don't know the history behind it, you're setting yourself up for failure. You're setting yourself up for misfortune. when you know the facts about anything, you're able to defend it properly. You're able to believe it properly, but if you're just getting something that was passed down to someone, that was passed down to them, that was passed down to someone else, and so on and so forth, and you never did your research for yourself, then you're kind of just a blind follower and not a believer in whatever it is that you believe, right? But something that he talked about, which we'll get into in part 2, is the ideology, which is ideas and philosophy, right? So really quick, let me give you the definition of philosophy. So philosophy, one second, y'all. Philosophy is the study of the fundamental nature of knowledge, reality, and existence, especially when considered as an academic discipline. So the study of the nature of something, right? So like I said, when you don't know the history behind it, when you don't know the nature of where it comes from, you're just a blind follower and you're not a believer. So make sure that whatever you believe in, that there is a foundation that is sturdy enough to where when winds and waves and chaos comes, you're able to stand firm, okay? He also talked about mindset, right? I mean, this is Tuesday, Transformational Tuesday, Talk About It Tuesday, right? Your mindset is very important because what you believe up here is what you're going to act out in real life, even if it's not the truth. So make sure your mental is where it's supposed to be. And he talked about, even in the Bible, how the ones who were going from Israel to Egypt, they didn't make it there. They detoured because their mindset wasn't in the right place, right? He talked about how you can't go into one level from another level if your mindset is still on that lower level, right? There has to be a change within you in order for a change to actually happen on the outside, because what is outside gets manifested on the inside. So when you go through different things, when tests and trials happen, it's not about what you believe, what you say you believe, how you are when things are good. It's how you are when you're being tested that determines your level of integrity and how grounded you are in your belief. That is what determines how grounded you are when you actually go through something, when you get tested. Because when you say, oh, I have a relationship with God and I love him, I love God and this, that, and the third, that is going to be tested. We're not just going to go off of words, right? God's not just going to go off of words. He's going to test you to make sure that what you're saying is actually true. Do you still love me if this happens? Do you still love me if that gets taken away? Or if this person is no longer here? Or if you lose that? Or if, what you thought was going to work out didn't work out? Are you still going to love me then? Are you still going to have a relationship with me then? Because a relationship is not just all good sunshine and happiness and daisies and whatsoever, right? It's definitely not. Relationships go through ups and downs. There's a balance. There's good and bad. And that's with life. That's a law, right? So make sure you remember that. And when you're doing your research and when you're studying what your belief system is, why you believe that, what is your foundation, how strong or weak it is, and what you need to work on, because all of that plays a major factor in why you believe what you believe. If it's something like, oh, my family, we grew up this way, but why do you believe it? You can grow up a certain way and that's fine, but what's your reason for doing it? And not just because it was something that your family put on you or you was forced to do it, because we all have choices at the end of the day. Why do you believe what you believe is the question that I want you to think about. All right. He also talked about independence versus freedom and how they are not the same. How independence gives you an opportunity to become free, but it's not the same. All right. So I'm going to leave it there. We are going to move on to our next video really quickly. And of course, just to be fair, I'm not going to play the whole thing from any of the videos so that we can actually play them for next time, as we'll do a continuation for next time. All right. So, for those who don't know, Iyanla Van Zant is a notable speaker, inspirational influencer, and she's helped a lot of people. So we're going to get into it. And if you don't know who Dr. Miles Monroe is, he's a notable speaker. He's a pastor. He's an author and so much more. He's no longer with us, but he definitely left a legacy for everybody. So if you don't know who these people are, definitely look them up. I will put the information in the comment section once this live is finished. But we're going to move right along to this video with Iyanla. Okay.
Welcome to the R Spot, the relationship conversation. Well, it's not real conversation because I'm talking to you. But if you hear something here at the R Spot that strikes a chord in your heart, I pray that not only will you subscribe, but that you'll have a conversation with those people you love, the people with whom you are in relationship. Because it's my intention that we all find a way to live more loving, happy, fulfilling lives in all of our relationships. So today, I want to talk to you about something that I have come to learn is very important in any relationship, specifically our love shoes, and that is your spiritual foundations. Now, foundations are the key to maintaining all the goodness in your relationship. A foundation will determine the quality and success of your relationships in years down the track. Now, I'm not talking about what church you belong to, or if you sing in the choir, or if you serve as a deacon or an usher. I'm also aware that everyone embraces spirituality from a different perspective. Some religious, some not. Going to church, or attending temple, or doing things like that. That's not what I'm talking about here. When I say a spiritual foundation, I'm talking about how you and your partner invite, incorporate, engage a higher mind, a spiritual essence, a sense of divinity, by whatever name you choose to call it in your relationship. And if you don't, perhaps you really want to rethink that choice. So what is the spiritual foundation of your relationship? Do you have one? What is it that you stand on? Who is it that you look to, seek to for guidance and support? What are the spiritual principles that govern your choices and behaviors in your relationship? And is your spiritual foundation solid? Is it steady? Is it working? All of this, I want us to examine. So let's just dig right in, okay? Let's look at the word foundation. It's defined as the ground on which the other parts rest or are overlaid, like the base on which the house is built or the roots of a tree. So without a strong foundation, neither a house or a tree could withstand the storms of the various seasons. Similarly, without a strong spiritual foundation, chances are a relationship is not going to withstand the storms, whether they be financial or emotional or personal. And it takes time to lay a sturdy foundation. It takes time to build a foundation of a relationship. It takes time and practice and study and commitment, and there must be a focal point, some essence or presence of something greater than the people involved. So now let me clear this up, okay? Two things. When I speak about spirituality, I'm not speaking about a chosen faith or practice or religion. I'm making a clear distinction between religion and spirituality. See, many couples have that religious faith, and hopefully they follow the tenets and the practices and the principles of that faith. Then there are the couples that do not have a faith or a spiritual foundation at all. And my experience is that those are the ones that get into the most trouble. Not that the faith-based couples don't have similar issues. However, when you have a specific set of spiritual principles in the foundation, it's quite often much easier to get yourself back on track when you fall off. When you're just out there making it up as you go along, with no sense of accountability or responsibility to anyone or anything greater than you, more likely than not, when the relationship gets ugly, when the relationship gets ugly, you resort to your human weapons rather than your spiritual tools. Okay? So what is a spiritual foundation? It's a way of life and behavior that ascribes to a specific set of values or principles. It's a way of seeing yourself in the world and your relationship that's aligned with the character or nature of a divine source. Now you may call it God or Jesus or Allah or Buddha, or you may simply call it spirit. The point is that there's an essence, a presence, if you will, that both partners trust, believe in, and look towards and support them in resolving issues and going through many challenges that come up in their relationship experience. So here's what I know. All faiths, all traditions hold the one same tenet. I don't care which one it is, and it's that God is love. The presence, the essence, the energy, the principle of love is God. Yet, many people who say they love each other don't invite or acknowledge or embrace God, Jehovah, Jesus, the Holy Spirit, or any other divine essence in the confines of their relationship. Often they don't worship together. They don't pray together. There are no spiritually grounded principles that they incorporate into their interactions with one another. And when there's no spiritual grounding and no spiritual foundation in a relationship, the partners aren't obligated to even demonstrate that they like each other. They'll say anything and do anything that crosses their human mind because there is no spiritual accountability. See, spiritual practices, spiritual principles, and a spiritual foundation makes each partner accountable for their behavior and accountable to something greater than their humanness. Now, I want you to notice that I'm speaking to and about a spiritual foundation. Just as a foundation in the building determines what kind of building is on it, your spiritual foundation determines your belief. Now, there are different kind of buildings that sit on different kind of foundations, and the same is true in a relationship. The spiritual foundation is how you determine the nature, the value, the energy of your relationship, your interactions, your choices, and your behaviors. So that's why it's important. And the key to building a good, solid spiritual foundation in your relationship begins even before you think it is a relationship. It happens during that time of dating or courting. You know, that's where you do the hard work of laying the foundation for a successful relationship. And in my experience of dealing with thousands of people and couples, the biggest mistake I see people make is that they did nothing to build the spiritual relationship or the spiritual foundation prior to getting together in the relationship. See, when you first meet someone that you're attracted to, there's that magical time when your emotions are controlling you. But this is also the most critical time. However, instead of using this time productively, it usually ends up being a time when no little work towards a long-term relationship is done. And in too many people's lives, that time, that early time, becomes very destructive. See, it's critical that you lay your foundation there. And it has to be a conversation and a series of conversations and questions each partner must consider and answer. What do you believe in? What do you believe in spiritually? What do you value? What is your value? What is your vision for yourself and for the relationship? What do you believe about child rearing, about divorce? What about life after death? Do you want to be buried? Do you want to be cremated? Do you believe in the death penalty? All of these are questions that couples would consider and answer to build a spiritual foundation. Because without that conversation, the relationship is built on feelings and shared interests, and that's not going to last long.
All right, y'all, that was Iyanla Vanzant. Again, their information will be posted. These video clips will be posted, and we will do a part 2 to continue what we did not continue this time. So make sure y'all keep this in the arsenal for next month when we have our meeting of the minds, because this will be a continuation, right? So just a little bit about what she spoke on today was that foundation, right? How foundation is key. Now, the definition that she gave was the ground on which other parts rest or are overlaid. So it determines the quality and the success of your relationships. Now, spirituality, that belief system, not only affects you, but it affects those that you encounter, right? So, you know, she's talking about relationships where people are together, where they're getting to know each other, whether they're dating, courting, marriages, what have you. But it affects every other relationship in your life as well, right? So keep that in mind and make sure that when you are dealing with other people that you know what belief system that they have along with you, so you know, one, how to approach the situation, what to talk about, you know, apart from just interest and being on the surface level with questions. Get deep with people. You know, don't be afraid to push people's buttons to see where they are, to see what they're interested in, what they're not interested in, because you won't know unless you ask. And if you're afraid to ask or have those serious and intimate conversations, then you're going to stay surface. And, you know, that will affect every area of your life. So if you're just a surface person and you just believe what you believe, you done did a little bit of research and you done believe the word of mouth from whoever, and you haven't really built that up for yourself, that's how your relationship is going to react. That's how it's going to respond and manifest itself based on what you believe, right? So keep that in mind. And also having that foundation is key to whether it's going to succeed or whether it's going to fail. And your relationship, your spiritual relationship, your belief system, your foundation determines your level of success and failure in every area of your life, because that's the core. The foundation is where it starts. That's what's being laid. Everything else is on top of that. So if that's not sure, if that's not grounded, and if that's not sound, nothing else in your life will be, right? So keep that in mind. Also, she talked about how everyone embraces spirituality in some type of way, right? And that what do you stand on, or what do you look for? You know, like what's your spiritual guidance? Who do you look to as a guide? These are questions that, you know, we want you to answer, to think about first and then answer. Maybe write it down, maybe meditate on it for a little bit before you come up with that answer. But just remember, these are the things that you need to be thinking about within yourself before you decide you want to ask that to others. Also, she talked about how whether you know your foundation is solid or steady, or whether it's a little rocky, that's important to know. Somebody else should not be telling you about how your relationship, your spiritual foundation, or your belief system is before you do. They shouldn't know more than you do about you. Also, without a strong foundation, the chances are any type of relationship, even your belief system, even that relationship will crumble if it is not a strong foundation, because it's on weak principles, it's on weak mindset, it's on, like I said, surface. If you're staying on the surface, that's all you're going to get is surface. If you go a little bit deeper, now mind you, life is not meant to be easy. Nothing in this life is easy. Relationships are not easy. And your belief system and your foundation, your spiritual foundation, is another relationship. Right? So focus on that and do that, right? Once you do that, that is what is going to determine whether or not it's going to grow or whether it's going to sink, whether it's going to stay up or whether it's going to drown, right? So keep that in mind when it comes to your relationships, when it comes to your spiritual foundation. How deep are you in it with it? How deep do you believe? How strong is your foundation? Because whatever that is, that's how it's going to manifest itself. All right. And that foundation actually helps you during the times of challenges when they arise. If you have that foundation, you have something to come back to. You have something to fall back on. You have all of that, right? If you don't have that foundation, then it's not going to help, right? If there is no spiritual foundation for you, if there is no belief system for you, I believe that we all believe something, but if there is no spiritual foundation for you and you're just kind of blowing in the wind, you're going to go wherever the wind blows, okay? So keep that in mind as well, okay? Also, one thing Iyanla said was that all faiths hold fast to one thing, which is that God is love, and I haven't researched enough beliefs to know if that is the actual fact or not, but just going off of what she said, a lot of spiritual foundations is that God is love and that he is merciful and is able to help you in different situations. And if you know what love is and you know that God is love, then you will move and operate in love in everything that you do. So that's up for interpretation based on what you believe, but you can let me know in the comments. You can let me know what you think about that. I'll leave that up to you, for you to think about, because I believe it depends on what you believe, your belief system, your spiritual foundation. Do you believe that God is love? Do you believe that a lot of spiritual beliefs and practices and religions believe that God is love? Why or why not? All right, I'll leave that up to you as a question. And then also, she talked about how you have to have spiritual practices, principles, and foundations, and how they are all key. They determine your belief. They determine, these things. And something that was a question that was posed was, what is your vision and what is your value? And that's something that you want to think about, right? That belief system, that foundation is what lays the ground for everything else. So make sure that foundation is sure, because if it's not, you're going to fall right along with it, because that is the core of who you are. All right, so we're going to move on to our last speaker for tonight. All right, so we are going to listen to Minister Farrakhan. And for those who don't know who Minister Farrakhan is, he is a great leader, great speaker, and, true speaker. But I will let him speak for himself. And feel free to put in the comment section your thoughts on the topic. How is your spiritual foundation? What's your belief system like?
To contact him after he was crucified, resurrected. Sometimes we don't know why circumstances in our lives are or were like they were. Sometimes we are upset with mom because of this or that, upset with dad because of this or that, upset with our siblings because of this or that. But what we may not know or realize is these circumstances when you were in the womb. It's these circumstances that were in your environment when you came from the womb that have shaped you and marked you for the future and for that which you are going to do like that to affect the whole world. Did you know that your dad's life and love and pain and suffering shaped him to be a voice for our young people and young people all over the world? He suffered in his life. He had pain in his life. He had joy in his life, but he lived his life transparent. Many of us in public life, we're one thing in the public and another thing in private. Not Earl Simmons. DMX was who he was and who he is, and the reason he has affected the people in the hip-hop genre and human beings across the globe, it is because he was genuine. So one sister that was talking, she said, man, he was a prophet. Well, those of us who study the Bible and the Holy Quran and other religious texts, we may not see him as a prophet, but he actually was. God used his life to educate, to teach, and show the world that you can come up the way he did, but struggle and then overcome the struggle and reach beyond your pain and your suffering and yourself to affect the whole world that is just like you. We came up on the rough side of the mountain, brothers and sisters. We didn't have an easy life. God ordered it that way so that we could serve his purpose through our pain to affect the whole of humanity. And that's why the Bible says the last will be first. The bottom rail is going to come to the top. And you will no longer be the tail, but God is marking you to be the head. And though my time to talk with you is short, I want to tell you something about Jesus and why your sadness won't endure for long, because you will learn how to contact your Father. When Jesus was among us, brothers and sisters, he had a shorter life than Brother Earl, but the time that he spent among us, his suffering, his pain, his deep love and commitment to the Father, he told us how to contact him after he was crucified, resurrected, and left us. The Father is not gone. He's absent, but you can bring him back. Listen to the words of the Master at the Last Supper. Didn't he call his disciples, sit them down, took some bread, and broke that bread? And he said, this is my body that I have given for the New Testament. You can't bring something new and better in the world if you only know a good life. Jesus did not have that kind of life. He was hated without a cause. He was persecuted and then crucified, but yet he remains in the memory of billions. And I, as a Muslim, he will always be in my life, because I know that in order to be a real Christian, you gotta walk after him. Look at his words. If any man would be my disciple, you have to deny yourself, but you gotta pick up your cross and then walk after Jesus. Look at Earl. Look at DMX. He didn't have an easy life, no. He had a successful life because he found out his purpose, and before life was over, he found the door. He's like a lion in a cage.
All right, y'all. So I am going to go to the second clip with Minister Farrakhan, and then we are going to talk about it and close out for today before we go into part 2 next month. All right, so for the sake of time, like I said, I'm not going to play them all out. Okay, so here we go.
Heavens and the earth. This is the Bible. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon. The subject is only God can make a man. Only God can make a woman. Anybody else that attempts to make you and me will always fail. There is no scholar or scientist that can make you and me what we were created to be. Only He who created us can make us what He created us to be. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. This is the Bible. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God separated the light from the darkness. One part He called day, and another part He called night. God began to create life according to the Genesis. He put creatures on the earth. And then the book said, and God said, "Let us make man in our own image and after our own likeness." In the 5th chapter of Genesis, it says, God created male and female and called their name Adam. So Adam is not necessarily a man, but Adam could be a species, male and female, according to the Genesis. Now, we have always thought that Adam was a man, of course, and then God put Adam to sleep and took a rib and made Eve. That's in the book too. All of that is magnificent poetic language. What does all that mean? And God created the heavens and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. That's heavy stuff. If the earth was without form and void, what was the water on? I mean, you can chase the scholars and they start running and hiding. It's beautiful language if it's understood. First, you have to understand that it's called the Genesis. And that's magnificent. Because the word Genesis, in the word Genesis, you have the word gene. And in the genes, or the genetic makeup of a thing, is the real coding of what it will be, what it can be. In the genetic makeup of the thing. So now we're looking at the first of the 5 books of Moses. Well, stop. Moses, just 4,000 years ago, what does Moses know about the beginning? When was the beginning, Moses? I don't know nothing about the beginning. Moses talking. I wasn't here. Moses is a liberator. And anytime you're a slave in another man's house, you have had no Genesis until you come into the birth of knowledge and light and power to free yourself from your oppressor. Then is your Genesis. Moses was a liberator. And Moses was talking to a people, but he was explaining to the people their condition by showing them how the universe was formed and how they as a people would have to be formed. Look at this. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. There's a relationship between heaven and earth, isn't there?
Yes, sir.
That's a magnificent relationship. The sun is in the heavens. It draws water up from the earth's surface into the earth's rotation, which is called gravitation, in a fine mist that the naked eye can hardly detect. That mist forms what is called clouds. Depending upon the current of air that the cloud is in, when that water becomes heavier than gravitation, she distills back to the earth in the form of water or a fluffy form called snow or ice or sleet, depending upon the current of air that the cloud is in. Is that right?
That's right.
So now there's a relationship then between heaven and earth. Without the heaven doing their job, the earth can't function. The earth would surely be without form and void if the heavens didn't relate to the earth. Are you listening? You would be dead if the heavens didn't relate to the earth, because it is the sun that gives light, life, and energy to our planet. It warms the planet, doesn't it? It causes the planet to spin, giving the planet its seasons, doesn't it?
Yes, sir.
The sun draws the water up and makes a cloud. The winds blow the cloud over earth. Then when she distills back to the earth, the seeds are in the earth. Then the water hits the seed and the sunlight puts its energizing rays into the earth, causing the seed to swell and burst, sending a root down and a shoot up. But if the heavens didn't operate on the earth, there would be nothing coming up out of the earth. So the heavens and the earth have to work together.
Yes, sir.
But the earth was without form and void because there was no light in the heavens. Are you listening to me?
All right, y'all. We're going to stop it there for the sake of time. And I know all of these clips are getting really good, but we will be back for our part 2. Okay, so stay tuned. Stay tuned. All right, so let's go over these few points, and then we'll be back next month for this part 2. All right, so okay, so we have the first clip with Minister Farrakhan was talking about this was at the funeral for DMX, but there was a few things that he talked about that I wanted to spotlight when it came to your belief system and your spiritual foundation. Now, DMX, people may not have considered him to be someone who was spiritual or someone who, you know, had a religion or spirituality or belief system or what have you. But if you listen to what the minister was saying, he talked about how his life was basically like similar to a prophet, in that he went through the struggle and he allowed it to transform him, to transform the lives of all of those who came in contact with him all of those who were on his journey. He did not leave without fulfilling the purpose that he came here to fulfill. So he said, sometimes we don't know why things happen, and they just happen, but to come up with struggle and to overcome that struggle and reach beyond the pain to affect change within the world is what we should be doing. You know, when it comes to your belief system and when it comes to your spiritual foundation, how grounded are you? How much do you actually believe to the point where you're willing to die for your faith? You're willing to die for what you believe in. You know, how you go back and forth with someone and you arguing, or, you know, you're exchanging words or debating or whatever. How strong are you going to hold on to what you believe is right? Right? Before you be like, you know what? You know, you win. That's it. I'm good. You know, like how much are you going to hold on to what you believe? And that's the point that I wanted us to focus on with that first clip. Learning how to contact your Father, learning how to go to your spiritual source, your spiritual guide, that foundation, so that when things do happen, you have something to fall back on. And that's something that has been consistent with all of the clips that we've gone over today. He also talked about how Jesus, you know, for those that don't know Jesus, read your Bible. It's also in the Quran. Talked about how he was hated without a cause and he was persecuted, but he still stood on his belief. He still looked to the Father for sustenance, and he didn't let anything or anyone come between his purpose. And like he said, he passed away at a young age, at 33 years old. He was crucified, right? So what are you willing to do? Or, you know, like, how hard do you actually believe in what you believe? And that's something that we all need to think about. And then in the other video where he's talking about how only God can make you, that only the one who created you is able to tell you how to actually live this life, what you were created to do. You can't look, let's say, if you have an iPhone, you can't go to someone else, like a Samsung or, you know, a T-Mobile or wherever, go to a different provider, different carrier, and expect them to fix something that only Apple can fix, right? You have to go to a source to figure out what the problem is, what its purpose is, how it functions, and, you know, all of that. So in the same way, we were created by a creator, by God. And in order for us to know what our purpose is, how we need to function, what our problem is, what we need to do, we have to go back to God to figure those things out, right? Or to get the answers from him, not figure it out, because it's already figured out. We just have to listen and be mindful of that. He said, understand first. So in order for you to actually have a belief system, you have to understand what you believe. Understanding is key, okay? He talked about the genetic makeup being the coding of what it can be, and that without heaven doing its job, the earth would not be able to function. So there needs to be a balance. So something that, you know, Dr. Miles Monroe, Iyanla Van Zant, and Minister Farrakhan all talked about had to do with that foundation, having a sturdy foundation, or else, you know, having that balance, or else all things not going to work out, and that there's always going to be times where things are going to be back and forth. Things are going to go haywire, but it's really what you're grounded in, what you're founded in, that's going to help keep you going, or to bring you back when you feel like you done fell to pieces, right? And if you're at the lowest level, that's a good place to be, because the only way to go is where? Up. All right, so we're going to end it there. Thank you so much for those who tuned in, those who will view this later. Make sure you check out part 2 coming up next month. But we are going to close it out. We are talking about belief systems and how's your spiritual foundation. So that's something that, you know, is a question that you don't necessarily have to answer today. You may not know all the answers, which is fine, but it's something that we want you to think about and come back next time with some questions, with something so that we can gauge you, so that we can really get to the nitty gritty, like how sturdy is your foundation, right? So we are going into Showcase Your Talent show tomorrow night from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Zoom. Make sure you register tonight because today is the last day. Check out that post later on after we drop this one, letting you know all the details so you can register. You can go to intellects.com. You can click that link in the bio, and we will have you in. Anything after midnight will go towards next month's show. All right, but we hope to see you there. We also have, of course, Meeting of the Minds Mondays. We'll be doing this part 2 next month. We do this once a month, and we talk about anything from self to business to art and everywhere in between. If you're interested in helping us to get different topics and you want to pose the question or the topic of the month, definitely email or DM us so that we can add it in the queue, because we're here to serve you. We also have Q&A Wednesdays once a month where we pose a question just to gauge you a little bit more, to get to know you a little bit better. And if you have questions to ask us, feel free. There's an option in the question or comment box. You can also email or DM us ahead of time so that it can be answered, guaranteed. If you want to pose the question of the month, that's also an option as well. We have Freestyle Fridays, open mics pretty much every time we have something on Friday. We have Battle Art Second Fridays. It will be coming back the second Friday, y'all. The theme is Note to Self, interpretation of self-care. Make sure you tune in. If you want a cash reward and you want to participate, make sure it's based on the theme and you'll be in the running. And whoever wins will pick next month's theme. We also have Third Fridays, the Art of War Art Awareness Fundraiser, where we raise awareness for the beauty, necessity, and uniqueness of art, as well as raise funds so that we can come to a place near you. You don't have to wait for Third Fridays. You can donate. Go to intellects.com or click that link in the bio and click the donation option, and we got you, okay? And we appreciate all the support that we've been getting over these past months and months and months. We appreciate it, and we don't take it lightly. We also have Freestyle Friday feature segments, Fourth Fridays, where we spotlight an entrepreneur doing their thing. We have Intellects, a place for entrepreneurs podcast. Season 3 is up and running. Check out the last few episodes in the last couple seasons. If you want to be a feature, definitely connect with us so that we can add you in the queue and get you up on here on this virtual stage, right? And you know, Season 3 is now visual as well, so we want to see you in the place too. We have promo options, YouTube options. Subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can see everything that we got going on. Also, subscribe to our email list so that you can stay up to date on everything Intellects. All right. What else we got? We got merch, we got books, we got so much more. But definitely subscribe to our email list and subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can stay up to date on all things Intellects. Thank you so much again for your time. Thank you for your support. And we appreciate you. We would not be here if it wasn't for you. So thank you again. We will be back on a Monday, not Tuesday, next time. So until then, we hope you have an amazing Tuesday and an awesome rest of your week. Until next time.